Enshrouded is a new survival game that has a similar feel to Valheim, and though they are similar, it's quite easy to feel overwhelmed in this massive world. So today we're going to cover all the essential tips and tricks that you need to know to get started in Enshrouded, from basic survival, crafting and building to a few more useful tips. But if we do miss anything, make sure to subscribe, as I'll be covering Enshrouded a lot more in the coming days and weeks on this channel. Now, starting off, you'll need to leave the sanctuary and head to the quest location to build your first base. Along your journey, you'll notice red highlighted items. These are quest and lore related. From the get-go, you can also harvest items around the world by pressing E. Doing so will give you resources, and if it's a new resource, it may unlock item recipes, providing you've researched all other resources that are required for that recipe, or its prerequisites, such as the various survivors that you'll find later on. Items you pick up are automatically added to your hotbar if space is available, and you can move items in the hotbar by going to your backpack by pressing B and then moving them, dragging them with the mouse. You'll also have two hotbars which are swappable by pressing Alt. And with this game being handcrafted rather than procedurally generated, there are going to be plenty of hidden areas, whether that's secret doors, blocked pathways, puzzle locks, and more. Explore your surroundings and remember to look back occasionally, or perhaps you'll miss the odd chest. Now, some items in the world, such as barrels and crates, hold resources. Break them and you can find yourself with all sorts of items, including powerful potions, which you can't craft early on. Now, a big part of Enshrouded is the shroud. When within the Enshrouded area, there will be a timer counting down at the top of your screen. When it reaches 0, your character will die. You can increase your timer though by strengthening your home flame, drinking potions, or finding high ground above the shroud. Alternatively, once you're prepared enough, you can actually go and find the shroud's roots and destroy them, freeing the world briefly from the shroud. You'll also face numerous enemies throughout your adventures, so it's important to understand the basics of combat. Now, you can lock onto a target by pressing Tab and then use Control to roll left and right. You can also find all of the controller schemes buttons in the settings menu should you wish. But for this video, I will be talking about the PC controls. Now, you can also block with the right mouse button, and with an item that has a parry score, you can parry by timing your blocks, which will stun briefly your enemies. Now, each enemy does have a particular attack style, which means learning their attacks will give you a good idea as to when you need to block and when you need to swipe at an enemy. But in the early game, it's definitely better to run than to try and fight groups of enemies, whether in the shroud or not, as it's easy to get overwhelmed, or in the shroud, find that you lose that time and die from the shroud instead. Now, another note in combat is enemies do have weak spots, such as their head or being attacked from behind. You can also sneak using C to crouch, and can optimize skill points to maximize your damage when sneaking and backstabbing. Some creatures may also be weak against different types of attack and resistant against others, such as magic or blunt damage, so I always recommend holding at least 2 different weapon types. Now, if melee isn't your style, you can find magical wands, staves and bows throughout the world. I'll talk about them in different videos, but wands require bones to be produced, bows, sticks and string, and wands are great as they do not require ammunition, whereas bows and staffs do. Using any item will slowly damage it, but these can be repaired at workbenches in your base or around the world. Now, to craft an item, press V, then select the item that you want to craft, and then spacebar to craft it. Now, if you do find that the item's name is in red, then you'll need to find more of the resources to produce it. You can click it and see what it is that you're missing. Although in the early game, you may want to craft weapons, you'll find the looting system in the game is pretty fun. You'll find weapons with different rarities. For example, we have green being common, blue rare, and then you have purple, which is rarer, and so far gold being the rarest that I've found. This means that through upgrading, you have extra perks available, but check the item's level, as a legendary level 2 item may be weaker than a common level 5 weapon. Occasionally, you'll level up your character after accumulating enough experience. This is more time consuming than most survival games and can be done by mining rarer minerals, killing enemies, and completing quests. But with a level up, you'll unlock skill points, which can be accessed by pressing H. Now, in the top left, you'll have your available skill points, and working from the center ring, you can unlock new skills or buffs for your character. If you're playing multiplayer, I highly recommend specializing your character in a given tree at first, then branching out. Speaking of multiplayer, if you are wanting your own dedicated server, which allows you and your friends to jump online at any moment, even when some of your friends are offline, then check out low.ms. We are partnered with them, and by using my link in the description below and entering the code WINTER23 at checkout, you'll get 25% off your first month. Naturally, when it does come to combat, you're going to be taking damage, and in order to heal, you'll need health regenerating items. In the early game, you'll want to find purple berries and bandages and use them regularly. If you're concerned about not having any supplies nearby, you can easily create bandages from plant matter and cloth. Your plant matter needs to be crafted into string and then combined with cloth, which is easily found killing the fel in the shroud. I'll also cover food shortly, but first let's talk about building. To place buildables, we need to build a flame altar. This creates your outpost and allows you freedom to build within its radius. Next, you'll need a workbench and a build hammer. Once the workbench is placed, you'll be able to create blocks of resources for building. To then build, grab your hammer, press tab, and this opens up the buildings options for you. You can scroll between the build sizes, and I recommend building foundations on 4-meter sections to start off with. Naturally, the foundations will snap to each other, but you can go off grid by pressing X when building. This is great for adding decoration to your builds. To rotate objects, press R, and for more advanced build tips, make sure to subscribe. Now, when it does come to builds, make sure to provide a roof over your shelter. Until you can build scaffolding, it can be a pain to get the right snapping points without using the snapping feature. So if you're struggling, make sure to click X again so that you're in the snapping mode if you stopped using it. Now, once you have a shelter, you'll want to add some basic furniture. A bed and fireplace is a good start, along with a chair, table, and candle. For a candle, you'll need to find wax, and that can be found by harvesting bees' nests. And the reason for this is it will give your base a comfort level. For each comfort level, you gain 1 minute extra rested buff, and this is incredibly useful because it increases your maximum stamina and stamina regeneration, which is really important when exploring, because if you run out of stamina climbing a large wall, you may fall into a pit of lava and die. Speaking of which, the green circle that you see in front of your character represents your stamina, and the red your exhaustion. Once you reach the red X, you'll need to rest until it regenerates. And if you want the rested bonus, you have to make sure that you're in a sheltered area and warm, and obviously that comfort will also help increase that rested buff longer. You can do this by sleeping or sitting down or just resting around there. Either way, you will see the timer increase if you are resting. However, with comfort and resting out of the way, it's time to look at food. Now, similar to Valheim, different foods offer boosts to stats once eaten. These last as long as the food timer runs. This can be found in the top left, where these 3 empty circles are. Each represent food slots. You can consume 3 foods at a time, each giving a boost to your stats. However, food effects cannot be stacked. So for example, you can't have more than 1 food that has a +2 modifier to constitution. But this does mean we can focus on food that supports our particular character build. For example, if you are a mage, you're going to want to eat food that gives intelligence and mana, such as mushrooms, and even better, cooked mushrooms, as it increases magic damage by 5% per intelligence modifier. Archers will want dexterity bonuses for range damage, and melee will want strength bonuses. Now, some of these foods do need to be cooked before eating, otherwise you'll suffer from food poisoning. So I recommend moving raw food out of your hotbar as soon as they go in there so you don't accidentally use them. And on the subject of cooking food, all you need to do is go to a fire or fireplace and press E in order to cook your food, and you can scroll through your hotbar to the foods that need cooking. Do note that you'll have to move them from your backpack to the hotbar if they are in there, so that you can cook them. Now at this point you should know about the basics of survival and shelter, as well as the various bonuses that are available through resting and food. So what next? Well, I recommend focusing on the quests to help you find the sleeping survivor, as well as building the glider and grapple hook. These will be necessary throughout the world, but it's now time to go out and explore. Collect as many new resources as you possibly can and follow the quest lines. And one word of caution, don't go into the red shroud as it's deadly. This can be unlocked by strengthening your flame though at the altar, but we'll cover more of that in the next few videos. So subscribe for more, and why not join me on twitch.tv/Totalxclipse for more Enshrouded content live. Now, special thanks does go to all of our amazing supporters on Patreon for this, most notably our Solarclipse patrons, James Owen and Firefless, as well as our Lunars, the Calamity, Ben and Star, and our Blood Moon of the day, which today is the Viking Brit. Until next time, as always, ciao for now.